Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday and our final week of Mental Health Awareness Month. As we've had a chance to kind of walk through lots of different levels of awareness, and I wanted to finish the time talking about just some practical aspects of when people are really wanting to get into counseling, or what does it look like? What are some things to keep in mind? And so it's writing on Monday/Tuesday. Hope you all had a good Memorial Day opportunities to do things. But really writing out in that email that went out several aspects I think are important to keep in mind. Even though we talked last week about the mental health shortage, there is one, but it's also why asking for, here's the first one, word of mouth really does make a difference. Because if someone knows you and you know them, and you ask them who they saw for counseling, again, it's one of those exercises this week to be able to ask someone, have you ever been to counseling? If so, who'd you see? What for? That kind of thing, to make it a normal everyday conversation, because people follow up with about doctor's appointments that they've had, like, hey, what was the test results? How did it go? Who did you see for this? Let's have counseling be the same thing. So word of mouth is crucial, and really asking people to ask that question over the course of the week to practice that. Second is realizing that most clinics want to be accessible. They want to have information out there so people can get in. So there's an easy way to do it. As an example, for our clinic, people can make all their appointment online in about 15 minutes. So you don't have to call and wait someone. A lot of people have to leave voicemails as it goes, but in some clinics like ours, you have a chance to be able to log on to a website, get all the paperwork you want, be able to make that appointment before you get offline, and have that certainty that when you're ready to go get help and see someone, you can actually have those answers. So really encouraging everybody to do that. And then the last two things I was writing about is, I think 3 is the magic number for people when they try a counselor, when they try and actually make it there. Give it 3 cracks at it. A first session can be a lot of just introductions and paperwork and some rules and what to expect. So when you have a second follow-up session, even a third, that's a pretty good assessment of, am I connecting with this person or not? And after 3, if you're like, this isn't really working with this person, please don't quit counseling. Just find a different one to go to. Ask that counselor if they recommend somebody else, or look for a different clinic, those kind of things. And finally, recognizing that counseling is not a straight line. There is lots of difficulty. It may take longer than people think. But with all things in life, it's like perseverance and endurance are going to be really the name of a game as you go forward, to try and get some of that help. So bringing us to this morning, really, I thought that it would be helpful just to highlight the questions that people should or can, or maybe they ask me the most when they come in, just to try and normalize that, so people aren't intimidated when they come in. Like, you can go ahead and interview your counselor as much as you want in order to get that information that's going to help you have that trust and take that risk to go in. So here are some examples of some questions that people ask me, and by extension, I think they may ask a lot of other counselors too when they come in. Obviously, this is a popular one. Are you accepting new clients? There are a lot of emails that come in because people are used to waiting lists. And as we talked about that through the month, there are waiting lists out there. I don't want that to be the case. And knowing that we're thankful at Advocate that we don't have one, because of the way we function, the way we have different staff, different levels of staff. So are you accepting new clients? Always a popular and good question. Always asking, what are the topics, issues, people that you usually work with? Those are good questions to be able to ask and do that. Sometimes if people have insurance, they'll be able to call their insurance company, and every 90 days as counselors, as licensed counselors, we have to update a list that tells people we're still working, what are the issues we work with, and we're still active. So we're constantly answering that question, which means when people call in, they can ask those same questions and find out about us. Another popular question is, how long does it take to get in to see you, number one, and how about a follow-up appointment? I want it to be accessible within several weeks. Sometimes there's an opening. If people are willing to come early in the morning at 7:30, they can get in a lot sooner to be able to see that. I know a lot of people want only afternoon, like after school or after work hours. Well, so does everybody, which means that's the longest people will wait to be able to get help. But if you're willing to kind of go whenever there's an opening, that's a way to cut down on some of those waiting lists, or not have a long time to wait for the second appointment. Another question that's okay to ask, or I get asked a lot, is it okay if I bring a family member with me or bring my spouse or partner with, or can someone come with just for support? And I would say, yes, that is always okay. Waiting rooms tend to be comfortable if that person is just there for support. But also, it's very, very helpful to have a family member in a counseling session because there's an extra set of eyes and ears. There's some collateral information that's brought in, and that tends to be helpful to the overall start of a counseling process. Here's one that gets asked a lot. Is it okay that I'm here talking to you when others have bigger problems? And we've talked about the negative thinking people have, and they kind of diminish themselves. They don't give themselves lots of credit. So when they come in and maybe like, I'm just talking about some stress at work, it's a completely legitimate issue. I like to say, like, whatever reason you want to go into counseling is legitimate enough because in your world, it's significant. It's causing a problem. Able to do that. And when people think, oh, I should only be here, other people have harder problems, I shouldn't take their time or their spot, really, it's one of those kind of thinking errors that you have to get through and realize your time is just as valuable as anybody else's when it comes to counseling because you crossed that bridge and you wanted to be able to get some help. So that's a good one. People also ask me, like, how'd you end up doing counseling or what did you study to get here? Like, they want to ask, like, what's your pathway? Maybe they're trying to get to the bottom of passion or they're trying to get to the bottom of actual training about what goes on or a clarification of, like, what's the difference between a counselor, psychologist, and a psychiatrist? Because that's important, too, to be able to understand. And just to be clear, because I'm being videoed, psychiatrists prescribe, are the only ones that work in the mental health field to prescribe medications. Psychologists have PhDs and they do a lot of assessment and research. They can certainly do counseling too. And then finally, there's the rest of us with master's degrees, licensed professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists. We're all the ones primarily doing psychotherapy instead of doing a research and assessment or prescribing medication. So we all kind of look the same and we can all generally are on the same field of mental health and want to be able to help people, but we have different roles and responsibilities. And then kind of two questions that come up more often that I tend to smile about and I'm grateful to be able to answer. One is, how do you do this all day and go home? How do you listen to people's problems all day and be able to do that? And my easy answer is, I have a great support network and good to be able to do that. And I think compartmentalization makes things work for me, that it's sometimes it's hard to remember who I saw during the course of the day because everything is just locked in and it's not a burden to come home. And so that's helpful. And probably the most popular question I get asked is, how tall are you? And that's just the reality, especially in my counseling office. I think the ceiling with the drop ceiling is about right here. So I probably have a 7-foot ceiling in my office, which things seem larger the closer, whatever. Anyway, so those are some good, serious questions, broad questions, and, some fun ones. But just illustrating this point that any question is good to ask a counselor, and it's not offensive and it's not wrong. We're all used to it, but it all goes to the matter of, do you trust this person? Do you get to know them? Because counseling is a two-way street. You're not only getting known by someone, you should get to know them too and make it work well. So it brings us to ours, and mine was simply like, are there any questions that people had about counseling or how it works or how to get into it that I could answer this morning? And in reality, it's like I want people to email me that or message me that or talk to me at the gym because that's just a part of it. If I can answer questions now ahead of time, that means people are closer to getting help rather than staying apart. So any questions that I haven't covered, that would be good to answer. And yes, I'm 6'7", right? That's what I always say.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is it like up to the person who's the client? Is it thinking like if I was like gonna meet with Steph, like coffee because I want to talk about something, I would expect it to be like a two-way conversation. Like, what do you think about this, or has it ever happened to you, kind of thing? Like, do people typically go so they can like unload, or so that they can ask that person like, what do you think about this? Tell me. You know what I mean? Like, or is there like a right way or wrong way? Because I'm expecting that they probably aren't going to divulge much about themselves.
Okay, good question. So what do people typically do when they come in the first time, kind of thing? Is it just them unloading things that they've been carrying with? And I would say for the most part that yes, by the time people come in and meet, they are tired of carrying things with them. It's hard sometimes. I mean, most standard sessions are 50 minutes, but a first session might go 60 or even longer because people have been like holding their breath, waiting. They've tried everything else, and finally they'll go to see a counselor, but it means they've been holding their breath for a long time. So they might come in, and it's it's a physical, it's an emotional, it's a mental process where that it is a lot to cover, and it's a lot that goes on. So I would say that oftentimes there is a lot of information that gets dumped. Um, that might be the most popular one, but certainly in other times people will come in and say, well, here's what I'm thinking of what I want to talk about. And they're very guarded as they come in. So maybe it's 50-50, but a lot of the time I can recall a lot of people like just exhaling gigantically and just saying, boy, I've been carrying a lot of that. It's been bothering me. I didn't realize it. And just one session, they can feel a lot different because no longer is it just held quietly or confidentially themselves. So a good question. Any others? Again.
How frequently do you usually meet with clients? Like, is it a
Yeah,
follow-up basis?
that's a good question. How frequently do I meet, or in general? I think you're going to see great variety in that. I think the expectation is that people think they have to go to counseling weekly in order to get like to do it right, quote unquote. Um, I am probably a every 2 or 3 week counselor kind of thing. That knowing that sometimes the schedule for people is very busy, and so I don't want to add that pressure that they have to come in and be seen weekly, or that, boy, you're so messed up you have to be seen weekly. I want people to realize that, hey, this is a conversation, it's a flow, let's find a mat. And there's probably a good portion of clients I meet with that are once a month, once every 5 weeks. So it really is a customizable thing. Now, there are topics people struggle with where they need weekly counseling, PTSD, trauma, abuse, those kind of things. And it makes sense because life is so hard in those 168 hours in between counseling sessions. So having a chance to meet weekly is there. But I'd say it's as unique as every counselor is what is going to be the frequency that works best. It's not a set one. When people come in and think they have to lie down and, think that we're just going to talk for 3 hours, I'm like, there's a lot of stereotypes there. Let's break that and just realize you don't have to be able to do that. Come on in and sit, and we'll figure out a plan. So good question. If you have others, email me, ask me, whatever you can do, because answering questions is important. So some final comments just about this month. I think if you think back to the first part of this year when we went through the dimensions of wellness, I think counseling does touch on any one of those dimensions and help it work, because counseling can be used for any one of those that comes into play. And we've talked about mental, physical, occupational, all of those things. There's a variety of them, those 8 dimensions. Counseling can talk about any one of those. It's not just limited for people with profound situations or complicated histories. It can be about tweaking and efficiency and being able to make something a little bit better than it is right now. There is power in verbalizing and acknowledging thoughts. I think it's the idea when I just said people come in one session, they can feel better. It's not because I said anything necessarily, or the counselor, maybe we answered one question that brought clarity, but it's this idea there's something powerful or magical when people actually say something they've been carrying in their head or heart and haven't verbalized. So when they say it the first time, it brings some insight, it brings some relief, even if they write something down and be able to communicate that way. And I think it's about transparency and that connectedness that we talk about a lot around here. And that's what makes gives counseling some power in that relationship, that environment. And then I would say that finally, that counseling is just one part of what helps people be better. That the more supports, the more professionals, the more different aspects people make to get help, the better it's going to go. So if someone comes in to see me for counseling, I'll be like, when's the last time you saw a doctor, kind of thing? And be like, oh, it's probably been years. They're like, well, why don't you establish yourself again and go see a doctor and have an ongoing relationship with a physician so you're able to do something. If they're disconnected and they just want to talk to me, I might say, like, hey, how about a mentor or somebody else you can talk to? Because then we have these 3 kind of corded approach to be able to help things. And we mentioned support groups a couple weeks ago. That's something else that comes in. So it gets to this point of the more hours you spend working on yourself, the better life will get, the faster counseling will go, the more effective, and the better the outcomes. So it's not just, hey, counselors are going to do all the work. There's a lot of stuff that goes on 7 days a week. As I said, 168 hours. The more help you have, the more diverse supports, the better it's going to go. So thanks for listening all month to all these different aspects of awareness. And this week, just trying to make counseling be straightforward and something that everyone thinks and believes they have an access to. So be sure to research that. The other exercise this week is, if you have insurance, call and find out who's in my network, what clinics are there, what's the cost. I mean, every medical procedure you want to have, you can get an estimate to know exactly what it's going to cost. Counseling is the same thing. And if you don't have insurance, remember that at the gym, if you're a member here, there is some version of 1 or more up to 5 counseling sessions. So even if insurance isn't an option, there is a way to get help. And that's important to me and important to Bill. So thank you very much for listening. Have a good workout and a good week. Thank you.